how to create a GitLab multi-branch pipeline in CloudBees CI. Here's today's starting point. I have a CloudBees CI controller version 2.414.3.7. Also installed on this controller is the GitLab branch source plugin. Let's go ahead and review that the plugin is actually installed. We'll go to Manage Jenkins, Plugins. We'll go to the Installed tab and search for GitLab. And we can see here that the GitLab branch source plugin is installed. Now let's go ahead and go over to GitLab and check on the repository that we're going to be working with. We'll go into the repository. We can see right now that there is a README file and nothing else in the repository. Now, before we can connect this repository back to our controller, we need to set up some credentials. So let's go ahead and go into our account inside of GitLab. We'll go to Edit Profile. And on the left nav, we need to create first an access token. We'll add new token. I'm going to give it a token name of CBCI-Darren Pope. I'm going to leave the expiration date set to what it is. And the scope that I need to select is API. We'll go ahead and scroll down. We'll click on Create Personal Access Token. And the new access token that you're going to copy is right here. So I'm going to copy this personal access token and save it off to the side. Next up, I need to create an SSH key. So let's go to the SSH Key tab. Let's add a new key. And in this case, we are adding the public key. So I already have a key set up. I'm going to copy that value into this field. I can see everything looks right. I'm going to leave the default expiration date and click on Add Key. At this point, my public key has been added to GitLab. So I've created an access token and I've created an SSH key, but I've only done that inside of GitLab. Now I need to create those two credentials also now over in my controller. So let's go back over to the controller. We'll go to Manage Jenkins. We'll scroll down to Credentials. We'll go ahead and click on Add Credentials. The first one that we're going to create is the one for the personal access token that we created. So we'll select GitLab Personal Access Token. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the token, and I'm going to create the ID of CBCI-Darren Pope. And I'll keep the description for that the same and click on Create. The second credential type that we need to create is the SSH key. So we'll click on Add Credentials. We'll change our kind down to SSH username with private key. For the ID, I'm just going to say Darren-CBCI-SSH. The same for my description. I'm going to set up the username, and then I need to get the private key. So I'll click on Enter Directly, click on Add, and paste in my key. Now for this key, I do not have a passphrase, so I'm not going to enter in a passphrase. I'll go ahead and click on Create. So now I have two new credentials I created. First one was a GitLab personal access token, and the second was an SSH username with a private key. Now, one more thing that we need to do is we need to go in and set up the GitLab configuration. So go back to Manage Jenkins. We'll click on System, and let's search for GitLab. We'll see that there's already a default one set up, but it's not configured. So let's go ahead and configure it. The credentials, we're going to select our credential that we set up, the CBCI-Darren Pope. I also want to go ahead and have the webhooks automatically managed for me as well as the system hooks. I can leave secret token set to none. And since my root URL for webhooks is exactly the same as my Jenkins controller, I don't have to make any changes. Just to make sure everything works as expected, let's go ahead and click on Test Connection. At this point, we can see that the credentials verified for user Darren Pope. So I know at this point, my configuration for this GitLab configuration is correct. Now, if when you're setting this up, you do not get the same message as credentials verified, you're going to need to go and fix the permissions on that personal access token. Let's go ahead and click on Save. Now we're ready to go ahead and set up our multi-branch job. We'll click on New Item. I'm going to give the name of the item the same as the repository. So in my case, that's Micro1. I'll scroll down to the bottom and select Multi-Branch Pipeline and click OK. What we'll do here at the very top, we will add a source for branch sources. We're going to select GitLab Project. You'll notice here the server that it's asking for is the one that we just configured, the default one. For the checkout credentials, we're going to select the SSH credentials that we created earlier. Next up, for owner, I'm going to put in the name of my organization, which happens to be just my name. For projects, I'm going to click on the dropdown and I'm going to select Micro1. For the behaviors, I'm going to leave all the default behaviors, no changes for those. We'll keep scrolling down through any of the additional behaviors, property strategies, all of that's fine. For the build configuration, I'm going to leave by Jenkinsfile, and it's going to be looking for Jenkinsfile. But remember, at this point, Micro1 does not have a Jenkinsfile in it. So let's go ahead and click on Save, and let's look at the log output for this job. We're starting our branch indexing. We're checking branches. We can check the main branch. No Jenkins file was found. There was only one branch to check, and therefore it's complete. So if we go back into the Micro-1 job, what we're going to see here is we see that the name was pulled in from GitLab. And we can see that the folder is empty because, again, there was no Jenkins file to be found. Let's go ahead and create the Jenkins file for this repository. So open up a shell, and within the root of the repository, so I'll say vi Jenkinsfile, and let's just paste in a very basic pipeline. So I have an agent any, and I'm saying sh echo hello. So just starting it up, making sure everything works. We'll go ahead and click on save for this. Let's add this file. We'll go ahead and commit it. And then you can see that we went ahead and pushed the file up to the repository. We can verify that by taking a look at our repository. We'll go back into my account. We'll go to Micro-1. We can see now that we have a Jenkins file at the root of the repository. Now, since we set up GitLab to manage our webhooks for us, now if we go and take a look at the job and refresh this page, we now see that our Micro-1 job has the Micro-1 repository showing up with the main branch. If we take a look at main and take a look at the output of build number 1, we can see the output from our pipeline that's echo hello. Now, if we go back to our job, Micro-1, we can see right now that we have one branch and no merge request. Well, let's say that I'm headed towards actually merging something in. We'll want to make a change to our Jenkins file. So let's go ahead and go back into our console here. We'll say git checkout main. We'll just make sure everything's there. We'll pull to make sure it's fresh. Now we'll say git checkout -b fix -123. And then let's go ahead and push this branch up without making any changes. So we say git push set upstream origin fix 123. Now, as that was pushed up to Micro-1, a webhook was sent from GitLab back to my controller. So if I was to refresh this page, what we can see here is the fix 123 branch automatically showed up. So if we were to click into fix 123, we can see that the job is running. We take a look at the output. We can see here that the echo is hello. So we go back to Micro-1. We now see main and fix 123. Let's go ahead and modify our Jenkins file that's in our fix 123 branch. So go back to our console. Let's edit our Jenkins file. We're going to add in two new stages. The first stage is saying if we are on a branch that starts with fix dash, then we're going to cat out the README. So what we would expect on our fix -123 branch is we'll get a cat of the README file. We're also adding in a stage for the merge request. So when we're in a merge request, then we'll get an echo out that this only runs for the merge requests. So let's go ahead and save this. So let's go ahead and add it. We'll commit it. Then let's go ahead and push the change for our Jenkins file. So let's go ahead and go back over and take a look at our job. We'll click into fix 123. We'll see that build number 2 is pending. If we take a look at the output of build number 2, we see our echo hello. We can see that we're catting out the README, which in this case is just a hash with Micro-1. And then we skip the MR stage because we're actually not in a merge request. Now let's go ahead and go back into GitLab. What we'll see here is we have a merge request helper at the top. You pushed to fix 123. Let's go ahead and create a merge request. So we're going to leave the title there, and I'm going to create the merge request. Now at this point, I don't want to merge. Let's go back over into our controller and see what's happening. What we can see here now under merge request is we now have one merge request. It's MR8. If we go back and take a look at our merge tab, we can also see that this is merge 8 right here at the top. So if I click into MR8, I can see now that it's complete. Let's take a look at what happened. So we get our hello from the first stage. We skip the second stage because a merge request does not start with fix dash. But then for the third stage about MRs, where it starts with an MR dash, this only runs for MRs, so we get that message. So first stage was good. Second stage was skipped as expected. Third stage rendered out. Now let's go ahead and go back over and let's merge this MR. We can see here that everything was merged successfully. So let's go back over to our controller. When we click back into the job Micro-1, well, we can see now that the webhook was received. We can see that fix 123 is gone. If we click into merge request, we can see that MR8 is gone, struck through. And the only branch that's left, fully functional, is the main branch. Well, if we click into main, we can see the job ran one more time. We'll go ahead and click on number 2. We'll scroll down, we see our hello. And then we also see that both the second and third stages were skipped because main does not start with fix dash or MR dash. Now let's think about this for just a second. What if we had numerous repositories that needed to use the exact same Jenkins file? CloudBees CI has a feature called markerfiles that will make this simple to do. Let's bring back up our console. Let's go ahead and delete the Jenkins file. We don't need a Jenkins file anymore. In fact, let's go ahead and change back over to our main branch. Let's remove our Jenkins file. So now main only has the README, but with a marker file, we just need to give it a name that we're going to be looking for. So in the case I want to use right now is I'm going to say touch.micro-build. We'll go ahead and hit enter on that. Now if we go ahead and commit these changes, we'll go ahead and commit them up now. We added them, now we're going to commit them. Call it marker file. You can see we're creating the file and we're deleting the file. Now let's go ahead and push that up. We go back over to our repository, take a look at our main branch. What we're going to see is our README and our .micro-build file. Now remember, the micro build file has nothing in it. We just touched it. Let's go ahead and go back into our job configuration. Go back to micro 1, click on configure. Now if we go down into the configuration for this job, remember that we had specified Jenkinsfile earlier on. What I want to do now is I want to change this mode by Jenkinsfile into custom script. And this is where we put the name for our marker file. So I'm going to say .micro-build. What this really means is if I find a .micro-build file in the root of my repository, then I'm going to go ahead and run the pipeline that's defined here, whether it's a pipeline script that I just type in the block, or in this case, I'm going to pull in a pipeline script from an external repository. Now in my case, I'm going to use a Git-based repository. The URL is my name, Jenkinsfile-library. That's a public repository, so I don't need any credentials. Well, let's go over and take a look at that repository real quick. I've got a main branch, so I need to make sure that I set the correct branch specifier here. And in this case, the script path that I'm wanting to pull in for this one is Jenkinsfile-basic. So if I take a look at Jenkinsfile-basic, what I'm going to expect from the output for this is I'm going to get a uname A and a Java version when this pipeline runs. So let's go ahead and save this job. It's going to scan the repository and it's going to look for the .micro-build. What we can see here is it's checking branch main. It found that marker file. And then if we go ahead and take a look at our job definition, we still see main. Notice that the fix123 and also the merge request, those are all gone. The only branch that's around at this point is main. If I click into main, we can see that build run number 3 ran. We can see also that it pulled the Jenkinsfile-basic from this repository. So when we go down to the bottom, we see the output of uname and also the output of Java-version. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter at CloudBees. If this video was helpful to you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to CloudBees TV yet, why not? Take a moment, click on that subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime there's new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.